Welcome to another edition of the Monday Morning Tennis Rant. In today's video, we're going to talk about the WTA 1000 in Montreal. We're going to talk about the ATP Masters 1000 in Toronto. But first, let me address my latest upload, which was the rematch against Andre in the brutal Florida heat. And first of all, thank you for all the engagement in this video, and thank you for the kind words. And a lot of you guys were concerned for the fact that I, at my older age of 47, soon to be 48, played in the middle of the day in the heat. So let me just clarify a few things. So I've been in Southeast Florida for a long time, 19 years to this day. And I have a lot of experience in playing in heat, and I can handle the heat well. Just like many other players here or coaches, I can be in the sun all day. I know how to protect myself from the sun. I've suffered heat exhaustion. I've never had heat stroke several times while I lived here, and I've learned my lessons about the dangers of the hot climate the hard way. Now, I don't only teach, but I also love to play in the Florida heat. And as far as the YouTube videos are concerned, I like to record them somewhere in the middle of the day. It doesn't necessarily have to be at 12 o'clock, but I like the sun to be high up. If I record a match, which I've tried many times, early in the morning, the sun is at a different angle, the shadows are tough on the court, and generally the quality of the footage is not that great, and the same goes when the match is recorded later in the evening. So I like to record when it is for sure at the hottest here. But one thing you have to understand about the Florida heat, it's not like the European heat, let's say like in Spain, Italy, or even in Croatia, where I'm from, where it is incredibly hot during the day in the summer, but in the morning and in the evening, it's nice and cool and you can sit outside. No, the humidity is brutal here 24/7. So there's actually not that much difference when you play in the morning, let's say at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, or if you play in the afternoon at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. As far as the humidity, you're still going to get exhausted. Of course, the shade helps. And this was my issue in this match, the fact that I didn't sit in the shade early in this match and I got too hot for sure. And a lot of you guys pointed out that I was wearing black, and you know, I like to protect my skin, and I've learned that darker clothing will protect your skin more than lighter clothing. For that reason, I'm not opposed to wearing black, but for sure a black shirt can absorb more heat, no doubt about it. Now, another thing that's a problem for me is the fact that I wear compression underneath my shirt, because I've been dealing with some really bad back issues for the last couple of years. And when I have compression on my back, it does feel better and gives me a sense of security when I play, and I don't think about my back as much. And that further adds to the difficulty of overheating, because you want to keep your clothing as light as possible because your body cools itself off by sweating, and when you wear a lot of clothes, it makes it more difficult. Now, I also like to wear long sleeves to protect my skin, and I have played some matches in long sleeves, which is great for skin protection, but again, you add the danger of overheating. So it's a tough thing to figure out down here in Florida, but one thing's for sure, I do listen to my body, and I have the privilege to know a lot of doctors who also happen to be tennis players, who I talk to all the time about these issues, and I know what signals to look for. And this latest match against Andre sure was a tad more dangerous than some of the other matches that I've played, because it didn't feel right. It was for that reason that I ended up taking a big break at 6-5. But something that's super interesting with some of these matches that I've been playing in 2025, and I've played a lot more tennis than I have in a very long time. And that's the fact that I only get like that against certain opponents. See, I play a lot of different players of different ages, and I'm usually fine. And there are a couple of guys who I practice with who are very strong players, who play very aggressively and have big serves. And I've never experienced exhaustion against these guys because the points rarely go longer than 2-3 shots in a rally. But two guys that I practice with are absolutely brutal, and that's Andre and Mikey, because these guys are unbelievable defenders. They're great athletes, and they can extend the rallies. And now it's more difficult for me to put balls away, and rallies get extended to 10 shots, sometimes even more than that. And these are the type of rallies that absolutely exhaust me and get my heart rate way up. And I'm fine with these rallies early in the match. But the trend that I've been noticing, and you can check out my first match with Andre on my channel, my second match, and on Intuitive Tennis Premium, I have a ton of matches there that I didn't post on YouTube. And something that happens all the time is the following. Against Mikey or Andre, I will start very strong. I'll get a break and I'll go up 2-0. Now, of course, there's no changeover after the first game. And that third service game, this is where I start complicating things for myself, because this is where I usually extend my service game and I don't play a good game and the game goes over deuce. And this has happened on 3 occasions up to love. And now, 3 games in, I've been on the court for a while playing without having taken a break, and I already start feeling it a little bit physically after the first 3 games, but I'm still fine. Now, once I already started to feel a little bit and I keep going, once you get to the middle of the set, I hit a low physically, and that is where I start to struggle. So I really have to start taking care of my service games early in the match and manage the points better. Of course, I have to, in the future, try to cool myself off. There are a couple of additional things that my doctors recommended, apart from sitting in the shade on the changeovers, to bring an ice box and have a ice towel around the neck and really try to cool yourself off. And they also mentioned that if I ever feel like I felt in the match against Andre at 5-0, that I should just lay down flat on the ground and try to raise my feet a little bit. So for sure, it is very dangerous to play tennis in Southeast Florida. That's why when you drive around here, and between 10 o'clock and maybe 4 o'clock, you rarely see anyone play tennis. Now, I do see people play pickleball, but that's a whole nother story. But generally, and this is true the whole time I lived in Florida, that part of the day, especially in the summer, nobody plays for a good reason, because it is not safe to play. But as I said before, this rarely happens to me, and I can handle the heat quite well. And I know what signals to look for so that it doesn't get dangerous out there. So look forward to more matches on the Intuitive Tennis YouTube channel, featuring myself, but also other players. I have a great match coming this week, a 3-hour 4.0 battle that featured a pro set where I had 3 cameras running, and I think they overheated on 20 different occasions. The equipment couldn't withstand the conditions, but the players did. Over the course of 3 hours, they played a very entertaining and very inspiring match. So look for that video towards the end of this week. But now, let's transition to professional tennis. And I've never in my life seen a player to be more disrespected than Coco Gauff. And I cannot understand why. Because if you look at this player, she has a career high ranking in doubles of #1 in the world, won 9 doubles titles, including the 2024 Roland Garros title with Siniakova. She also has 10 singles titles. She won the WTA finals last year, which is a huge tournament. She also won 2 Grand Slam tournaments and has a career high ranking of #2 in the world. But yet, if you read comments regarding Coco Gauff, they are very negative and they are extremely disrespectful. See, tennis fans on various social media platforms often have recency bias. So they will completely destroy Iga Swiatek when she's playing poorly, and then Iga wins Wimbledon, and then they start praising her. And that happens with other players as well. But unfortunately not in the case of Coco Gauff, because even when she wins, let's say a Grand Slam, people are still very critical. Even in my own private messages, I've had people tell me how much they hated the Roland Garros final because they thought it was such a poor match. I absolutely disagree. First of all, just the results alone tell you that Coco is an incredible player. How in the world can you achieve these results? #1 in the world in doubles, #2 in the world in singles, unless you have extraordinary skills in all factors of the game of tennis, whether it's mental, whether it's physical, and yes, whether it's technical. See, I became a huge Coco Gauff fan when I watched her many years ago at an exhibition tournament in Delray Beach. And Coco back then was ranked around 50, and in this match she played the #1 player from the University of Miami. And I saw something from Coco that I don't often see from WTA players, and that's unbelievable hand skills. Coco has exceptional touch, whether it's offensively or defensively. Her balls are also very lively, especially her forehand, but also her serve. Coco can put a lot of spin on the ball. If you're familiar with Del Rey, you know that they feature an ATP 250 tournament every year. They're also going to host the Davis Cup very soon. So this is a facility that features a lot of professional tennis. And I lived in Del Rey for 12 years. And I've been to that tournament many, many times. And I've never seen it sold out except one time. And that's when Coco was playing. And it was an exhibition match that was completely packed. And Coco wasn't even the superstar that she is now. She was only ranked number 50 in the world. So Coco does have a lot of fans, but she also has, unfortunately, a lot of haters who cannot see the qualities that Coco has. And this is a big problem because these negative comments tear down the entire WTA tour, because these people claim that Coco is so bad at tennis, and yet she is a two-time Grand Slam champion. But understand that Coco is a 1 in a billion type tennis player that doesn't come around very often, with exceptional talents and a outer worldly skill set on the tennis court. Now, Coco does have some issues when she's not at her best. There's no doubt about that. And most of these issues stem from a lack of confidence. Now, in this tournament in Montreal, in her first round match, Coco committed 23 double faults. In the second round match, she committed 14 double faults. She won both of these matches. But interestingly, in doubles, where she's playing with Kessler, I think they're in the semifinals, Coco wasn't making any double faults at all. So looking at this from a distance, you can make the argument that this is purely a mental issue. And surely this is something that other players struggle with. I featured videos with Emma, where we're talking about the fact that she also will have matches where she hits 15, sometimes even close to 20 double faults. And then we step on the practice court and I do drills with her. For example, I'll have her hit 10 kick serves and I count how many she gets in out of 10, and she'll get 10 out of 10 all the time. So this is what you have to understand regarding the second serve, that these players are unbelievably skilled and they make these shots in practice. They come on a match court and things are different. Now, when it comes to Coco's forehand, it's purely a mental thing. I do think that she tenses up on her forehand. She doesn't trust it. That can lead to a lot of mistakes. And on the kick serve, that's also true. But in addition to that, there are some technical deficiencies on her kick serve. I've talked about them in a previous video. And despite this deficiency, Coco can still hit a good kick serve. But I think technically you can still improve a little bit. I'm not going to get into details on what those technical deficiencies are. You can check out my previous video. So Coco lost 6-1, 6-4 to Mboko, an incredibly talented player who I've talked about during the clay court season because she took a set off of Coco in Rome. And I watched that match and I was very impressed with this player. She has the talent and the skill set to go very high on the WTA Tour. Very good athlete, incredibly powerful ball striker from the baseline, and she also has a very good serve. From these matches that I've seen, Mboko also seems to be very strong mentally. So this is a great opportunity with the support of the home crowd to do something really fantastic. The WTA Tour has so many exciting players. There are the established players who are competing for Grand Slam titles, but there are also older players who are still very dangerous, and there are young ones who are coming up now, who are challenging the players at the top of the rankings. So during the Wimbledon tournament, in the fourth round, Clara Tauson faced Iga Swiatek, and I thought that this match was going to get very complicated because, somewhat similar to Amanda Anisimova, Tauson possesses the ball striking skills to beat anyone in the world when she catches a good day. Especially her two-handed backhand down the line is one of the best on the WTA Tour. Now, she does play a high-risk game, similar to Anisimova. So her results are generally more up and down, but she is so dangerous. And in Wimbledon against Iga, she didn't catch a good day, and Iga was on absolute fire. In yesterday's match against Iga, I did not think that Iga played that poorly, but Tauson just caught an unbelievable day and wasn't giving Iga that many mistakes. It's going to be interesting to see who will come out as the champion in this tournament. We got Keys against Tauson, Svitolina against Osaka. Both are on absolute fire in this tournament. That's going to be a good match. Rybakina against Kostyuk. That's going to be an interesting match. Rybakina not playing her best tennis, but playing the important points well. So maybe this will give Rybakina confidence and maybe she can take this title. And then, of course, the big chance for Mboko to take the match against Monero from Spain. She's going to be the favorite in that one. So you can make an argument for a lot of these players to take the title, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Let's take a look at the men's draw. We got Fritz against Rublev. Fritz, since Wimbledon, hasn't been playing his best tennis, but he's managing to win some very important matches because he could have easily lost that match to Lehechka. Fritz could have lost some of these matches in Washington prior to going out to Davidovich Fokina. But Fritz is in the quarters playing against Rublev, and if he comes through that one, and if he possibly plays either Demonar or Shelton in the semis, Fritz has a pretty good look to win this tournament, especially if Zverev comes through on the top half, because Fritz has absolutely been dominating Zverev in the head-to-head. So without the superstars, this is a golden opportunity for pretty much anyone in the quarterfinals to take an ATP 1000 Masters title. Now let me finish off this rant with a complaint. I do not like the 2-week Masters format at all. I cannot believe it's Monday and we still have a week of this tournament. Masters 1000 tournaments, WTA 1000 tournaments are not Grand Slams. Grand Slams can go for 2 weeks because we have singles. We have doubles. The men's singles goes best of 5. We also have juniors. We also have legends, and we also have mixed. So there is a lot of tennis that you can watch during a Grand Slam tournament. And we unfortunately don't have this at the ATP 1000 level or the WTA 1000 level. So to me, it feels like these tournaments are just dragging on. Personally, my favorite Masters 1000 tournament, ironically one that's somewhat downgraded because it's not a mandatory one, that's Monte Carlo. It is so incredibly fun to have this tournament wrap up in a week, and each consecutive day you have unbelievable matches. Very similar to Monte Carlo is Paris, which is also a tournament that's only 1 week. Now, you would think that players would be for a 2-week Masters because they get to rest in between matches, but no. I have not heard one player in favor of the 2-week format. Most players are against it as well. Most recently, Zverev was on the Changeover podcast, and he voiced his concerns with a 2-week Masters format, rightfully so, because from a fan perspective, we feel that the tournament is more dragged out. There are less good matches to watch, and for that reason, a lot of tennis fans might lose interest. So I think it's in the best interest of the players and the fans to not treat WTA 1000s and ATP 1000s as Grand Slams, because they are simply not. Now, you could make the argument that it's brutal for the players to play matches on consecutive days, but understand that just like Andy Roddick said on the Surf podcast, tennis players train their whole life to be able to play one match per day. Players do not need an extra day of rest if they win in straight sets. For example, Osaka won her match under an hour, 1-0 against Sevastova, and she doesn't need an extra day of rest. Of course, you could play another match that same day. Of course, if you have a match like Lehechka against Fritz, that's 7-6 in each set, featured 0 breaks of serve, that's brutal, especially if that match goes late and have to play the next day. But that's the cards you dealt with in tennis, and sometimes it's tough. But generally speaking, players are able to play a best-of-3 match every day in a span of a week. And from what I've heard, the players want to do that. They don't want to hang around a tournament for too long. Because the thing is, when you're at a tournament, as I've said many times, you can't really train, you can't work on your game. You got to keep your body fresh, preserve your energy levels for the match. And it's going to be tough to get better and improve, and it's also going to be very mentally draining. Now, one natural thing that will happen in the future is that when we have these 2-week Masters, especially when they're consecutive, is that a lot of players are going to choose to pull out of the tournament. And that's exactly what happened in Toronto this year. And the superstars all pulled out of this one. That's going to continue to happen unless they change the format back to the old one. So ultimately, the 2-week program is not helping the fans, is not helping the players. And most importantly, tennis itself might suffer from it, because the top players who are going to go deep in these tournaments, they're going to choose to skip a lot of these Masters events in order to not get burnt out. And therefore, the tournament suffers and lessens in value.